members of the human family. Today is the 15th of May 2024. I am Othmane Wagdi in Mohammedia, Morocco. Welcome to the General Durability Podcast. My guest today is Madam Sarah Turner from the United Kingdom. She is a brain health expert and she is here with us to help us in our quest for knowledge, ultimately self-knowledge. Welcome, Sarah. How are you doing?
Thank you, Othmane. Yes, very good today. Thank you.
Great, great. Can you please tell us a bit about yourself and how it came to be that you engage with the brain health?
Sure. Yeah, I actually started out with pharmaceuticals. So I started out my career doing research for big pharmaceutical companies, looking mainly at drug deliveries. And I quickly found that it has a lot more to do with the state of your body, how you actually can deal with drugs and how different kinds of drugs that get deposited in the body. So that started me off really looking at how we could maybe focus more on ourselves rather than some external medication. So I did a nutrition degree, I did a neuroscience degree, I did all kinds of things to try and focus a little bit more on that. And it eventually led me over to California, and I did a lot in what was the biohacking movement, which I'm
Okay.
sure you've heard all about. Yeah. So people who are doing all kinds of things, mainly in adjusting their environment and in just adjusting their own physiological state in order to optimize their health.
Health in general.
Health in general, yeah. I mean, it's the biohackers are kind of more about not just having a state of health, but being the best you can be. So
Yes.
enhanced health, so it's all about how do you get the edge? How do you really maximize on all the things you're doing, the exercise, the supplements, the food? And that really took me to light, because
Yeah.
I think light is probably one of the biggest factors involved in health and human enhancement. That quite often, people forget a little bit about the light environment and how important it is.
Yes, yes, great point. Because I have a civil engineering background, and everyone is talking about CO2. I see in light much bigger problems because I see ecosystems die. For example, where I am now, there has been an ecological system, and because of light pollution, there is a massive degradation of the ecological system.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's thinking on a more global level.
Yeah.
But from a kind of a human standpoint too, a human centric standpoint, we're not so much paying attention to our light environment. And of course, we are animals that have evolved under the sun, and we're hugely sensitive
Yeah.
to a lot of different wavelengths of light.
Yeah.
We take cues for the time of day through our eyes, but we also have a lot of light receivers in our body. So that's where I have come in, where I'm thinking more about the gut brain, because our whole body is covered in light receptors, including our guts, including our brains. Our microbiome are responding to external and internal light cues.
Yeah.
So it's a fascinating field of study, and actually it's a growing field of study. So more and more people are now looking at how can we potentially take different light frequencies and have different physiological effects.
Great. I'm very interested. Can you tell
Yes.
us about, first of all, before diving deep into it, uh,
Yes.
uh, what is the relation between the gut microbiome and the brain? Is there a direct link?
Oh, for sure. So your gut microbiome, I mean, we all have different kinds of levels of microbiome, depending where we are, depending what we're exposed to. And when we're in harmony, when we're in balance, we have this, it's really a collaboration, I suppose, between species. We think of ourselves as human, but actually, if you're looking at cells in the body, we are actually more bacteria than human. There
Yes.
are probably more bacterial cells in the body than there are human cells. So we are kind of a walking collective, a walking collaboration. And so everything is interconnected. And
Yeah.
especially, our gut bacteria are doing a lot of things for us. They're producing and helping us to produce certain chemicals. They're also releasing certain metabolites that have an effect. All of these things impact the brain, some directly via the vagus nerve. Some of these metabolites can actually cross the blood-brain barrier, and some indirectly. Some we're just affecting hormone production and things like that.
The good point what you are making, because I have heard a lot from my from German experts.
Mhm.
A lot of them are talking about leaky gut, leaky brain.
That's right.
Yeah, it's a big problem in today's world.
Yeah, and I think possibly, we are exposed to a lot more toxins potentially right now. Also, potentially we're exposed to a lot of environmental disturbances, different kinds of electromagnetic fields, non-native electromagnetic fields, pesticides in the air, fine particles in the air. All of these things can have an effect on the integrity of our gut. So when people say leaky gut, what they really mean is the integrity of the gut has been compromised. So some of these cells that are meant to kind of butt up close to each other become disorganized in a way that gaps appear in the integrity of the gut lining. And when you have these gaps, potentially food particles can leak out, metabolites from bacteria can leak out and go into the bloodstream, and that causes inflammation. It can cause all kinds of other issues. So I think it is a massive problem right now. And most people, that you speak to say, oh, I've got some gut problems, or I know someone who's got IBS, or I know someone who's got leaky gut, or if I eat a certain thing, I become inflamed. So I think it is a huge global problem right now.
Yes, and when these toxins, if we take it, we say, okay, there is a leaky gut.
Mhm.
When it becomes a brain problem, so it goes through the blood, and then why it did normally it doesn't have to cross the brain barrier.
No, but certain smaller molecules and things can cross the blood-brain barrier, and deliberately so. We're meant to have a communication between our gut and our brains. However, we can get these detrimental bacteria which are releasing metabolites which we might not usually be exposed to. And like I say, we can also have it just in the blood supply that's getting to the brain. We can have it like externally to the blood-brain barrier. So there's a lot of ways that you're having this effect on the brain. And the symptoms of that are things like brain fog. That's one of the main symptoms that you might get of having these metabolites that are coming from your gut actually ending up in your brain. Also, inflammation. We have this, as I said, the body is a connected system. So if you have inflammation in one part of the body, you're going to have inflammation in another part. So neuroinflammation, again, it causes all kinds of symptoms like, potentially sleep disturbances, can alter mood, can alter cognition, can
Yes.
change how you can focus, can even influence things like memory, because if you're not focusing and paying attention to things, you're not laying down those base memories. So the integrity of the gut is hugely important for brain function. And
Yeah.
I think now people are starting to see the connection between chronic diseases, like maybe like Parkinson's disease is one that's famously now connected to the gut. And people usually see a gut symptom before Parkinson's. So, people who have Parkinson's say, oh, yeah, well, I've had constipation for years, because the gut symptoms seem to, come before the symptoms that then you start to recognize in the brain. So, yeah, this whole connection between the gut and the brain is hugely important for us, and probably one of the major factors in any kind of brain disease or brain symptom.
Yes, like you said before, we are a walking organism.
Mhm.
Yeah, so we have to see ourselves like in a small ecological system, and there is a lot of interconnectedness between different living sh species, like you have said before. Yes, great. Uh, the gut health has not just an effect on the brain, but also on the heart.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah, there are lots of these different axes because, as I said, the body is really lots of nested systems, interconnected systems. So, of course, you have a gut brain axis, you have a gut heart axis, you have a gut liver axis. All of the organs are connected in some subtle and some very direct ways. So really, it's about treating the body like an interconnected system. You can't do one thing to one part of the body without it having a knock-on effect everywhere else. So, and of course, there are bacteria. The bacteria aren't just in our gut. We have bacteria also all over our bodies. I mean,
Yeah.
some of the most interesting studies right now are looking at things like Alzheimer's. what kind of bugs are in our brains. There's some evidence to show, even some fungus, some different kinds of microorganisms can be at play there. The heart
Yes.
too.
Yeah, there is a lot of people speculating that these bugs or microorganisms in the brain,
Mhm.
there is helpful ones and there is damaging ones, and those the last ones are producing like dementia, anxiety, provoking a lot of psychological issues, not just physiological issues.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
We live in a kind of balance. You have, to say good and bad, some of these organisms, it might just be the dose. Low levels of a certain organism are probably quite beneficial to the body. You need a bit of stress in the body to keep the body going. It's just if you have an overgrowth of those particular species. So really it's about balance and homeostasis and keeping things in a way, where the body can deal with the metabolites that come off or deal with the stress. So I think it's difficult to classify bacteria as good or bad. Sometimes it is just in where they are and the numbers of them, the population.
yes. It is like the issue with the environment in general. Biodiversity, I think it's also a role, has a role in the gut and the whole body, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, diversity is a big thing. Yeah. You want to have, because diversity gives you options, like in nature,
Yeah.
that's why we have so many creatures in nature, because then you have options. If you get a certain environment, you can respond to it if you
Yeah.
have diversity. And I think you're exactly right. That's how we should think about our bodies, as kind of an environment where you want to cultivate a lot of diversity. You want to have a lot of flexibility in the system.
My speculation from my own experience is that I will tell you my experience. Uh, a few years ago, I was 16, 17 years old. I had the problem with my tonsil, and my doctors were always prescribing penicillin, and then after that, extoncillin, heavy antibiotics. And after a while, after 2 years or so of treatment, I was getting massive problem with my gut. It's like someone is tearing me apart. As the pain was not bearable. It's like many times I prefer to be dead, and it
Yeah.
developed many very bizarre ideas and thoughts. I think that's a speculation. I think that consciousness is a source of collective thinking or collective thought between all these microorganisms, and the end result is what we are thinking. We are just the end results.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, it's fascinating when you think about, yeah, we are this collection of species, and what does that actually mean for our consciousness? And what does it mean, like you say, when we give these broad spectrum antibiotics that wipe out a lot of the species that are living in us? Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes. It took me many years to recover from that. It also drove me to suicidal thinking. Constantly. I think that this is a major issue. I think it's a big issue because I didn't have any other motivation to fall into that category of thinking other
right,
than this exact problem.
right.
So,
How did you deal with it in the end?
yeah, I almost did it. So I'm thankful I'm still alive because it was 2 years of fighting my thinking, and tried it many times. But at the end, it was changing brain reprogramming actually, because I found the mission, and a mission in life helps you out in those situations, because I was going through a period of nihilism. I think it's the result, direct result of my microbiome being destroyed, or with such major antibiotics. And at the end, I had a mission, started working on it, and I had a lot to learn, and kind of went away. But also, I have to add, I was eating very well.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you kind of replenished your flora in your body, and then you also gave yourself some meaning in life, and
Yes, yes.
that
It was meaning. It was meaning. Was just started international civil engineering studies, and a
great.
new place, new country, new people. So I was looking for friends and looking for knowledge everywhere. So kind of was my mental state, and at the same time, I figured out that I have to eat very well, not eat any fast food or yeah bad food. And it was a good experience at the end. Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. And it's so interesting because that just points out how powerful our mental state is, because we talk a lot, people can get very granular on which supplement you should take and what exactly composition of your microbiome should be.
Yeah.
But really, your mental state is kind of the thing that overrides a lot of that. If you can get yourself into that good mental state, get community, get meaning, then you can make these right choices about your food, and then you can get granular. But I think without that piece, it's very difficult for people to get well.
Yes, 100%. The do genetics play a role in the gut biodiversity or just diet?
I'm sure everything plays a role. I mean, certainly where you are geographically is going to have a huge impact.
Okay.
So regardless of your ancestry, where you are actually, on the planet, you're getting exposed to all of the minerals from the water,
Yeah.
from the soil, from the plants that you're eating. So I think so it is an interesting point that, yeah, we should maybe look at our ancestry and maybe try and make sure that we are thinking about, okay, am I eating things that maybe suit that? Am I getting exposed to the light that's going to produce the right microbiome? But I think probably the thing that has most impact is your immediate environment rather than your genetic ancestry. Like where you actually are on the planet will kind of dictate the bugs that you have in you at that given time.
Okay, so the epigenetics is more important than the genetic part.
Potentially, yeah, because epigenetics is how you express certain proteins. So, but whether that what I'm saying really, I was talking more about the composition of your bacteria at any given time is probably more related to your environment than your genetics. But you're right that we do have certain genetics that produce certain proteins and things which may impact the kind of the environment that certain bacteria want to live in. But your genetics won't dictate anything about so much the actual bacteria that you have because they got their own genetics going on, not related to ours.
Yes, you have said it before. We are probably composed more from bacteria than from cells.
That's right. That's right. So, we really do need to pay attention to what we're exposing ourselves to and make sure we're maximizing our environment because the environment will dictate, that you're getting the good guys or, at least the beneficial ones to have the best environment. Uh,
Okay, to have the best environment, I think fasting could help.
yeah.
Different kinds of fasting.
Fasting, yeah, and fasting, there's so much information about fasting. For me, I think it depends on where you're at. If you're very sick, fasting's probably not a good
Yeah,
idea. If you're very healthy, and you know what you're doing, fasting can be hugely beneficial for some people, but it's very individual. From a woman's perspective also, there are different times during the month when fasting is, less beneficial because
yes.
you've got all kinds of different hormones and things going on. I know from personal experience, I did a fast once and had a terrible time, but now I've done a bit more research on it. I think, I did it at the wrong time during the month. I did it when I was very busy at work,
Yeah.
and potentially I depleted myself. If I was going to do it again, I would do it differently. So I think fasting potentially can be hugely beneficial, but you have to do a bit of research and you have to kind of base it on yourself rather than kind of read a book that somebody else has done because it might not translate.
What I think is I come from a Muslim culture, And
Hmm.
Muslims do it in a certain way. And throughout the years, I've learned I just have to experiment. Just one day, I don't eat for 16 hours. Just like that. Do not plan very much, and uh, uh, do not stress my body extremely, but give my microbiome a pause. So
Yes.
it's not the continue busy all the time. That's the problem. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think most people do benefit from that, having like a, a longer break. So if you're going to try not to eat late at night, or if you do, then don't eat first thing in the morning. I think that's kind of probably good advice for most people. You're right, is to give your gut time to process, so you haven't constantly got food in your gut. I think that's probably sound advice for most people.
And about water fasting, could that be also helpful?
Again, I think it's very individual. It's not something that I personally would want to do.
Yeah.
However, I have a friend who does it regularly, and he looks great afterwards, But he's a yoga teacher. He's very fit and healthy to start with, and he's kind of doing it on top of an already super healthy lifestyle. So again, all of these things potentially could be beneficial. I think you're right. Sometimes it's just using yourself to experiment. Do it for half a day, see how you feel. Maybe do some research, do it for a day, do it for that, and then build on that. But I think again, it's very individual, and it depends where you're at with your health.
Yes, yes, 100%. It depends. It's very relative from person to person. At 20 years old is not someone who is 6 years old. A woman is not a man. So we have to differentiate and experiment to find the best way. I will go to another point I made here about sports.
Oh, yeah.
Sports, especially endurance sports like jogging, swimming, biking, like to go for a long distance. I think such sports, I'm not talking about football or basketball, I'm talking about in sports where the cardiovascular system goes in an autonomous for a few minutes, half an hour. Could that be beneficial?
Yeah. Yeah. All of these things. I mean, anything where you're moving your body. I mean, I think, especially as people get older, the benefits of keeping up cardiovascular exercise is very well documented now. You have all different kinds of bodily cascade reactions that are released during cardiovascular events. And I'm sure there would be changes to the microbiome. You're flooding your body with all kinds of, with oxygenated blood. You're doing all kinds of different things to your carbon dioxide levels. So yeah, I think, again, building it up so that you're not shocking your system, but any kind of cardiovascular endurance exercise, I think, is going to be beneficial for most people. Again, you just have to take yourself from where you're at, because I think a lot of what people are finding is due to your mitochondrial health. So your mitochondria are like the very small organelles that are within your cells that produce energy. Uh, and interestingly enough, they're probably bacterial in origin, probably, millions of years ago, a bacteria joined with a unicellular organism, and that's why we have the ability to make energy, because we are a symbiotic relationship in that respect too. But your mitochondrial health, whether you can charge these mitochondria, whether they call it a redox health, whether you can absorb electrons from your environment, that probably dictates how much exercise you can do, how much fasting you can do. So really paying attention to your health, in like thinking about yourself more as a battery, how charged is your
Yes.
battery? You don't want to run on no charge, we all know that's no good.
Yes, yes. I have a speculation again from own experience. I lived a few years ago, and I was in Germany at that time, and I had Wi-Fi router near my
Yeah,
bed,
right.
and I had very low energy during that time. I remember.
Yeah.
It's not scientific, but it's an observation in my own body. I think there is a relationship somehow,
I think
because
so.
it was very near my body all the time, a few meters, 2, 3 meters away from my physical body. and I remember
Yes.
that I had low energy. Oh,
Yeah. And if you think about it, we are, when you come down to what matter is, it is just kind of it's mind blowing, but we are just kind of frequencies, and we are things just moving very
yeah,
fast. What we think of as matter is probably not as solid as we think. So potentially we are very influenced by anything that disturbs those wavelengths and frequencies that we have going on. So things like Wi-Fi routers, mobile phone masts, 5G, all of this stuff could potentially interfere with that very subtle signaling in the body. And so I think there are so many anecdotal cases like the one you just mentioned, where people say, they feel really bad when they're next to a Wi-Fi tower or a 5G phone or something, that it's really worth making sure. Don't
oh,
sleep with a router next to you. Make sure you turn it off. Don't have it in the same room. Don't have your phone on under your pillow or next to your bed. Put it on airplane mode. Put it out of the room.
yeah,
I think these things are very, very simple things. And you don't have to kind of be like a tinfoil hat brigade. You don't have to be so paranoid about it.
yeah.
But for such a simple fix as turning these things off at night, to me, it seems like that is something that we could do as a precaution, because we don't really know. The fact is, we don't know. A lot of the research that's done is done in a very specific laboratory condition, which is not the condition that we're dealing with when we're out in the real world.
The combination is the thing. If you have bad diets and then you
Yes.
have a router near your bed and you are thinking negatively about the world and you are
Yeah.
consuming the wrong information, so the composition makes the results at the end. So yes, it's just one element from many elements. But like you have said, just the router in another room, a little bit, 10 meters away from the body could be beneficial during the night, simply turning it off because we
Yeah.
need the Wi-Fi, we are working with it. We should not be paranoid because paranoia will make it extreme. So we
Yeah.
are entering the thinking again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. You don't want to have it so it becomes a nocebo, like the
Uh,
opposite of a placebo, where you're kind of
Yes.
making yourself sick. But I think that, little small things you can do, like putting your phone on airplane mode overnight, it takes nothing to do it. And why not? Let's just start to remove some of these toxins. Uh, yes, and see how we can reduce the load on our bodies. Because you're right, it's a combination of everything.
Okay, I will go to the subjects that you engage with the most,
Yes.
which is brain gut axis healing
Yeah.
using photobiomodulation technology. Can you tell
Yeah.
us about that?
Yeah, so photobiomodulation is a bit of a long, fancy word, and it really just means light therapy. So it used to be done really exclusively with lasers. And so the terminology was also always cold laser therapy or laser therapy. But now most people use LEDs because of there's been such advancement in that technology. So we needed a new word. So we decided on photobiomodulation, which is a bit of a mouthful, but it just means modulating your body with light. So that's why that's a bit of a mouthful, but for most people, red light therapy is quite clear, because although there are different colors, we all know there are different colors of light. The ones that are most healing are the ones in the red end of the spectrum. So that's slightly longer wave. So if you think of a rainbow, red, orange, green, yellow, and you go
Yeah.
down to blue, the blue ones are kind of more energetic because they're short wavelength, and then the ones at the other end, the kind of oranges and the reds, are slightly longer wavelength, and they're more healing. They penetrate deeper into the body, and they affect the mitochondria that we spoke about before to give you more energy and to have healing reactions. So the body responds to all the different colors of light, but it's the red end of the spectrum which is the most healing for our bodies. And so that's why we feel great when we see sunrise and sunset, because we're getting the red color. That red color is the healing side of light. So we can, because that light does penetrate into the body, especially infrared, which is just beyond the red that we can see with our eyes. So it looks invisible to us, but it's still technically in the red spectrum. Because that goes deep into our bodies, we can then actually use it with these devices to get fairly deep into our bodies and have an effect on the organ there. So we can put it over the gut and it will penetrate the gut. We can put it over the forehead and it will penetrate onto the surface of the brain.
Great. I will tell you my experience,
Hmm?
and then will comment on the technology. I was not aware of this information, but in 2016 I had a back injury,
Mhm.
and it was a severe hernia. And my good friend has the LED device with the red and infrared lights, and I was to take my t-shirt off and put it behind my back, 30 centimeter, 40 centimeter. He was not a doctor or anything, just happened to know that, and didn't explain to me why, but I kind of liked it and done it regularly. Uh, the doctors have said to me I need to do an operation, but I decided not to do that. So I took this technology in combination with good food and swimming, and it did function very well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting you said, oh, you didn't know how it worked, but you quite liked it because the body produces, all kinds of chemicals when we expose ourselves to sunrise and sunset, but also to this red light. And, it's almost like an opiate, in form, the chemicals that we produce because our bodies want us to be exposed to these. We feel good with sunrise and sunset because really nature wants us to be out there at
Yeah.
sunrise and sunset. So we produce chemicals that make us like the experience. And I think that's why, you see a lot of animals who might gravitate to this therapy because you kind of intuitively know that it's doing something good for you.
Yes, I'm pretty sure when I remember about that time, I was doing it like every day and
Right.
without knowing that it will help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is great too, because with a lot of these therapies, it is also inconsistency. Because as you expose yourself to the light, your body reacts. So if you're targeting the mitochondria, every time you expose yourself to these red light therapy devices, the body produces more mitochondria. So that the next time you can receive more light. And it kind of builds on this effect. So people who use these devices regularly get the greatest effect from them.
Okay. In the technology, you have a part of it you put on the head and a part of it you put on the gut.
Yeah.
Are they linked using Bluetooth or something, or they are not linked technologically?
Technologically, they're not linked. And I've done that deliberately because, as we've spoken about, I'm kind of not into having too much of these non-native EMF fields
Yes.
going to the body.
Yeah.
So, like my device, this is the headband, and it has Bluetooth because I can do pulsing in the headband, but it also has a disable switch. So you program the headband with the Bluetooth, but then you have the option to turn it off. So connecting the two devices was an option for me, but I've deliberately kept it simple. It's just the body pad just has an on-off switch to minimize that the EMFs going to the body. Because, as we've said before, you want to minimize any of these little things as much as you possibly can. But the connection is really internal. You're putting this device on your head, you're putting a device on your gut.
Yeah.
Your body's doing the connection. You're building up beneficial bacteria in your gut, you're healing the integrity of the gut, so you're healing your leaky gut at the same time as you're energizing your brain and helping your brain to entrain different brain waves. So over a period of time, you build up this connection between the gut and the brain by doing both of these devices together with the red and near infrared light.
Yeah, I kind of love the English language because an idea came to my mind now. I do remember Mr. Sanders told me that this device could help in depression. And I'm thinking about depression. What is depression? And we think about it in psychology or in economy, like an economy is doing bad. Like
Yeah.
psychology, my organism is not doing that bad. So like we have to energize it. Okay, like for example, in the economy, what's his name? Keynes worked how to do this. What's the name of the his idea? simulation, economy
Oh,
simulation,
yes, stimulation. Yes, right.
quantitative easing, and so, and then it's very similar to what you're talking about. Yes, very interesting to see the parallels.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, we kind of do live in these nested structures, our cells are doing their thing, and then that has an effect on our organs, then that has an effect on our bodies, then that has an effect on our communities, then that has effects on our societies. Everything is kind of nested, and we have these patterns, and we need to respect all the different scales, I think, because obviously if you're feeling good, you're having a ripple effect. Your family's feeling better because you're feeling better, your family's doing better. So I think that's an interesting point. It's nice to think globally sometimes, to kind of expand ourselves a little bit and think, okay,
Yeah.
how is this kind of being mirrored in the world around me also? Because, yeah, nothing is in isolation, everything is connected.
Yes, yes. I even started to thinking about such things the last few years, because I see also there is, because I have been through suicidal thinking, and I see that at the global level, that
Mm,
also the global society could do something, think like this,
yeah,
global societal suicide. At least thinking unconsciously. I don't think this is a conscious thing. Like in my own experience, I had nothing that drove me to do that. It was just my ecological system inside my organism was out of balance. And the
yeah,
same thing could be at the societal level, that a society, a city, a country, a civilization could commit suicide. Yeah.
yes. Yeah, some people, I mean, it depends, where you put your focus. I mean, sometimes when you look at all the stuff going on in the news, you think, oh my goodness, we are on self-destruct mode here.
Yes, yes, yeah. Mr. Jeremy Griffiths, he says we are in the race of between self-destruction and self-understanding, and kind of
Yeah,
love that, because we can solve the problem of self-destruction using self-understanding, like what you are doing with your technology, for example. This is
mhm.
an understanding about yourself, about the human being, and using this understanding, you can end or help end the self-destruction. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And it starts with the smallest things. Start by looking after these tiny little organelles in your body. Then those tiny little organelles will look after your cells. Then you will feel healthier and happier in your body. Then you can help your society. I think you're right. It all comes from perhaps perhaps what we're thinking now is about awareness, having self-awareness. Once you have the awareness and you can have an understanding of your thoughts, like you are able to see your thoughts from the outside and think, okay, why am I don't even know why I'm having these thoughts.
Yeah.
You had the awareness, but when you're in it, when you're kind of in it and you're just not, you can't see out of it. So I think awareness is a huge thing, and it's something that, some of these technologies allow people to at least have that.
Okay, you are talking about awareness. What is the difference between awareness and consciousness? Is there a difference?
I don't know. I belong to a lot of groups that are investigating consciousness. And to me, consciousness is something that is kind of much bigger than the individual. Consciousness, could even be a fundamental of the universe for all we know. It's something that we're just kind of living through. And to me, awareness is more something individual. How aware are you as an individual? So do you have that capacity to kind of think about your motivations, or to understand your environment? So that would be my way to differentiate the two.
Okay, very interesting actually. So awareness is individual thing, consciousness is beyond the individual.
I think so. I mean, consciousness is a funny word because, you can have, if you give somebody a certain gas, they become unconscious, like they lose their consciousness. Or when, if someone's knocked out, they become unconscious. But is that they're just losing the ability to experience the consciousness that's happening, or have they, or is it something fundamental to the individual? I think we could kind of go on for days arguing about what consciousness is and what it isn't. But certainly I think consciousness is something that is a fundamental, and it's something bigger than the individual. And of course, how we experience consciousness or what that is another massive topic, and is linked to awareness.
Yes.
But I think if we're talking about health, on a very basic level, kind of taking responsibility for your health, having awareness around some of these things that could be impacting you is probably a great place to start. And if people are kind of there, no matter where you are with your health, you can probably make big changes. I think they're things that really are important on a health journey to cultivate.
I kind of love that because I was always thinking about consciousness, but what you are saying is reduce responsibility just on awareness. So because when you try to be conscious about a lot of things, it could be too much. But just aware about your neighboring areas, aware about what you eat, what you do, personal responsibility. So yes, it's gonna reduce the load on the shoulders.
Yes, because we don't know, we don't really even know what consciousness is. And to take that on, I mean, people do all kinds of things to change their consciousness. I mean, psychedelics are a big thing now. People are doing all kinds of things to shift potentially the way we experience consciousness. And even some of this neurotech, is doing things where people can get to what's called an altered state of consciousness.
Yes.
Which again is a very interesting topic. And, people are finding huge health benefits for all kinds of things just by having that shift. But it is a funny word. It can mean a lot of things.
Yes, yes. I even not just today. I also in the past, ancient civilization experimented with altered states of consciousness.
Right.
They came to breakthroughs in technology, science, skills through that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
very interesting topic, definitely. But I will come back to the bacteria role.
Okay.
Yes, very. I kind of see that it has a false combination of gut microbiome or a dysfunctional organism in the gut microbiome could lead to societal issues such as obedience, for example, such as societal depression. And what could we do about it? Now we have technology, that's a good one. Second, we have talked about a good balanced diet. I don't remember talking about it. Technology and the sun. Could
Mhm.
an exposure to the sun, like taking t-shirt off on the beach, for example, could that also be helpful?
Yeah, when you think about it, our bodies want to return to a balance. That's really what our bodies want to do all the time. They want homeostasis. Our bodies want to have a balance between kind of good stress and bad stress, how our body is functioning, blood pressure, all these things. And really we're still mammals, we're in these mammals' bodies. We kind of put ourselves above animals because we live in houses and drive cars. But, whether that kind of indicates that
We
we're
are arrogant.
yes, it's potentially an arrogance because we are still in what is in effect a diurnal mammal body. And so that is an animal that has evolved
Yeah.
under a certain wavelength of the sun, touching the ground and doing work that involves moving the body. So that's the bodies that we still inhabit. And I think it's really only a couple of 100 years that we've had artificial lights and cars and all the rest of the stuff that we now kind of take as our daily day. But really, we do need to respect that we are still in these bodies. We do respond to light. So really the best thing you can do is try to, as much as possible, align with where you are on the planet. So that means feet on the bare ground at some point during the day. That means seeing the sunrise if you possibly can. That means being outside as much as you can, but at least an hour a day, preferably in the bright sky. It means exposing yourself to cold. It means exposing yourself to heat. All of these things that we would normally do as kind of creatures that live on this planet. So I think a lot of the biohacking stuff is geared up to that, you know, especially over here in Europe.
Yeah.
Well, I'm in England, actually, not technically Europe, over this side of the world.
It's Europe, but not the EU.
Yeah. but we're kind of all about, you know, it's very much like if you go to the biohackers, they're all into, okay, have you done your grounding? Are you eating certain mushrooms? Are you kind of actually getting beneficial bacteria? You know, if you're going out in the woods and you're scuffing up all the dirt, you're actually breathing in that bacteria. It's good for you. We shouldn't just be walking in cities and then in carpets and then just in bright lit rooms, because it's just not how our biology was designed.
I like telling my story.
Yeah.
During COVID, I was living in Germany, and I had to go due to my studies to Denmark to continue for a year. So I was there, and it was too much stress, too much studies, financial problems, COVID lockdowns, and I was like crazy. My organism was giving me very bad signals. So I decided, okay, I go home, descended
Yep.
back to Morocco. I was walking on the beach without shoes, taking
Yeah.
t-shirt off in the sun, swimming in the water. A couple of months, and I was back again. I was okay. But I had very bad signals, and I had to decide to go back to regulate my system, my organism. And I came to an idea, very interesting idea, a seasonal migration. You can read about it in my website. Like in what we are talking about is exposure to nature the maximum amount of time possible.
Yes.
In England or in Germany or Sweden or so, it's very difficult to be outside in November, December, February, January, March. So my proposition, scientific proposition, is how to organize seasonal migration between Northern Europe and Southern Europe, including Morocco. Uh, living, for example, for 5 months in the UK, and for the other 7 months in South Spain or something like that. Uh, it will not be for every profession, but for many professions, it's probably good because farmers can do work outside in December, January in England. But they could do work in Spain, for example. So it's for the body to stay in tune with nature, and the idea I came with is by observing mammals. Mammals
Mhm.
do migrate, whales do migrate, birds do migrate. Why not us humans?
Yeah, I'm in. Where can I sign up?
I just I'm just started to be back online because I had to stay out of the game to understand what's going on worldwide. I'm back in the game. I shared the link with you. You can read it and give
Okay.
your feedback. So I'm really trying to work it out. Uh,
I will for sure, because it's a brilliant idea.
yeah,
I mean, and I think having the awareness of that's as we come down to it. Okay, what is my body telling me? Okay, my body's telling me I need to be in the sun, I need to be in the sea, I need to walk on the beach.
yeah.
I think the issue is a lot of people have kind of lost the ability to receive those signals. So, you know, people feel a general sense of unease, but not really sure why. And certainly, you know, in the kind of northern countries, uh, some people are more adapted to it than others, and I think it just becomes an accepted thing. Okay, we're going to feel depressed for the whole of winter, and people just accept that. So I think it's about, okay, there is things you can do about it. You know, if you can't get to Morocco in for the whole of the winter, you can maybe use these lamps. You can get outside even if it's in the rain.
Yeah.
You can put your feet on the ground even if there's snow outside. But people just don't do that, because I think people just don't prioritize that kind of primal living, or that going back to being a mammal, like you said. So I think,
I'm networking at the moment with individuals from the agriculture sector,
Right.
And I have had very good feedback from them. They wow, it's just good idea. They kind of love it, but there is a problem with the legal framework.
Oh,
Not with the people. The people are good. Don't, you can get the people on the train, but there is a legal framework that has to be developed. At the easiest, it will be within the European Union because due to legislation and because the taxation and other things. That's the bigger problem. But feasibility on the ground, it's good for the people and good for their work and for their health. The only problem is how to create a legal framework so that people can take on risks because there is a risk. Because what I'm talking about is not doing it once,
hmm.
not tourism. I'm talking about doing it for a living for 20 years, 30 years. Like, for example, you choose Manchester, Valencia, for
Yeah.
example. And then you have 8 months in Manchester, then the hard winter comes, and then bye-bye Manchester, I'm going to Valencia
Yeah.
for 4 months. And you do it every year. And then
Yeah.
you
You're right. I don't
create.
think there's a problem with the people. The people are in, I'm sure.
Yes, yes, the people are in. The problem is how to get to create a legislative framework for that to happen. I'm gonna go back to photo biomodulation. Uh, are there potential side effects?
Well, you're really just exposing yourself to the same wavelengths of light that you would get in the sun. So you're not doing anything that the body doesn't recognize. So it's in some way, I mean, it's not natural because it's coming from an artificial light, but it's a natural wavelength. So there's not really any side effects because, the body recognizes red light, near infrared light, and knows what to do with it. So I suppose if you can overdo it if you use devices where you're getting quite a high dose and you do it for hours and hours and hours, because what happens is you speed up your body, you're providing a lot of energy, and then your body starts to make waste products that it can't get rid of because you've sped up the system too much. But you really do have to really overdo it to have those side effects. So
Okay,
I think
good.
really there's not any side effects to using this technology. There's certainly no documented major side effects in over 5,000 published peer-reviewed studies.
Okay. I can recall in my experience, I was doing it for my back about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, it gets too hot. Uh, yeah, then I have to stop. So there is limits. So how much time do people do that? Activate.
It depends on the device and it depends on the delivery system because certain device like my device is designed so it has heat sinks, it takes the heat out, and so you're not using that thermal effect. It really is quite cool to the touch. uh, it also depends on the power output, how much power you're putting into those devices. So you need to make sure you're getting a device that's kind of been regulated and approved as a light device, not a heat device, because some devices are doing both, because heat has a therapeutic effect. It's just not the photonic effect that we're looking for with a lot of this photobiomodulation. But for most people, a session time is around 10 to 20 minutes a day with a device that's putting out a reasonable output.
I kind of wanted to ask this one, behavior.
Mhm.
Uh, in your experience with your clients and people you are supervising,
Yeah.
uh, when the gut-brain link is disturbed, what are the behaviors? Are there behaviors that show off regularly in people?
Well, I'll
Uh,
just give you one example from a lady that I'm going to see next week. So I'm doing some case studies of people who've got IBS. So I have a lady who has
IBS?
it stands for irritable bowel syndrome.
Okay.
Irritable bowel syndrome. So it's when you get a collection of symptoms. Sometimes it's constipation, sometimes it's diarrhea, sometimes it's bloating.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's a syndrome, so it's a collection of symptoms. But actually, 10% of the global population has this syndrome, which is huge when you think about those numbers. So I have a lady who has irritable bowel syndrome, and she's been on using my system for probably 6 weeks now. And she sent me a fabulous email to say that she would only go out to places where she knew there was a bathroom, knew there was a toilet she could use. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to go. So if someone invited her somewhere and she didn't know exactly where it was, or she thought that there might be a walk that she would have to do before she could find a bathroom, she just wouldn't go out. So she has now, since she's using the device, her symptoms have gone to a certain extent that she can just go anywhere now. She doesn't worry about it. So that's one of her behaviors that kind of was restricting her life, in that
Yes.
she was very nervous about not being able to get to a bathroom in time. That was a huge thing for her that she doesn't have now. So now, it's totally opened up a whole new world for her, because she can accept all kinds of invitations she might not have done before, go out with friends that she wouldn't have seen before, gone to different places to eat, gone to different walks. So that was a really nice email, and I'm going to be visiting to catch up, because I think these are some of the things that people are dealing with. Their lives become restricted by their symptoms.
Yes.
And maybe ways that you just kind of accept, you don't even realize that you're putting those limitations on yourself until they've gone.
Yes, yes. Yeah, of course. These are very, it's a heavy load. It's a heavy load.
Yes.
You keep your thoughts all the time. It's not a rare phenomenon, a rare problem. It's, yeah.
10% of the population has IBS, which is really quite shocking when you think of the numbers. And I think it is because, we are exposed to a lot of toxins and pollutants, and like you say, just little things add up, and we our bodies do start to reject some of the things that we're putting inside.
Can I say something about wanted to link this element, heavy metals, with the
Yep.
photobiomodulation? Could photobiomodulation help in this problem? Because we are getting toxins from everywhere, from the air, from the water, from the food.
Yeah.
And these toxins, because nature functions like this, builds some sort of bacteria or some microorganism that feed on these heavy metals. Now, the photobiomodulation takes sun radiation, natural radiation, and do it technologically.
Mm-hmm.
Is that helpful to reduce these kind of parasites, or do we need a combination with detoxification?
Well, I think, to be very simplistic about what this light therapy is doing, it is providing your body with energy, with blood flow, and even changing some epigenetic expression to produce different proteins that enables your body to function more optimally. Basically, that's what you're doing with these light therapies. Once your body is functioning at a higher level, because you have more energy, you have more ATP,
Yeah.
you have more blood flow, the body will make its own adjustments. If we have heavy metals in our body, and our body can't deal with them, it will just sequester them in places. Fat
Yeah.
cells, like you say, potentially will get different parasites. But if you raise the health of your body by giving it more energy, giving it more blood flow, the body makes those adjustments, and all of a sudden it has a lot more energy to deal with things and potentially excrete things in the way that it would do if it's kind of meeting that homeostasis. So I think certainly anything where you're wanting the body to kind of function better, including excretion of heavy metals, is possible. I don't have data to back that up. I don't
Yeah.
have data to show, okay, this is a heavy metal load before and this is a heavy metal load after. But that is my understanding of how this therapy is working. For sure, you can do detox. You
Yeah.
can do detoxification things at the same time, and it may help or increase that. Potentially, there are some heavy metals that are difficult to remove from the body. But I think anything that you do where you're just increasing the general health of the system, a lot of times the body will find its own way around that. As long as you've got the energy to do so, the body is self-regulating in a way.
Yes, that was a very good explanation. Because, for example, when I'm sick, I try always just to not take medication. And I think that's for many years I haven't took any medication. Yeah, because of my own past with medication, with antibiotics, I just avoid them. I have paranoia with medication. But what I do, I pay for good food, where I find nutrition like the liver from an animal, or vitamin C, for example, from orange, or from yes, just like to take food that is very rich in useful minerals. And then the body does the work. It takes normally more than other people. For example, when I have a cold, another person in my family has a cold, in my body it stays like for 4 or 5 days, but the other person takes medication and it goes quicker than mine. But in my case, my body takes it's on its own, so it's
But then
self-regulation.
the other person is potentially not, it's not that their cold is gone, it's just they're masking the symptoms.
Okay,
But
yeah.
because if you take an opiate, or if you take a paracetamol, or if you take ibuprofen, the symptom will go away, but the cause of the problem is still there. And I think in order to heal properly, sometimes we do need to go through a certain amount of pain.
Yes, yeah.
The pain is produced by the body to stop you, the body doesn't want you kind of going to work when you're not well, because the body wants to heal completely. So I think a lot of people who are taking medications, potentially they're back to work sooner, but their body hasn't completely healed. So you can end up with problems down the line. And so I'm a bit like you. I try to take minimum amount of medication. I very rarely take any medication. And if you have a pain, well, then your body is producing that pain for a reason.
Yes. One idea that I have explained to my family lately, because there were many members of the family, and there is a kid, a small kid, like 2 or 3 years, and she's hot, has a fever. Uh, Bring her medication. What are the medication? I need to go. I just intervene and said, let the girl alone. Let
Yeah.
her alone. The fever is a good symptom. Her body is functioning, trying to fight what is the problem. So
I
when you try to hide this fever or to end it, that is the problem. It becomes the problem.
It can do. I think you're right. I think there are certain times where you don't want the fever to get too much, but certainly, if you've just got a mild fever, it is your body heating itself up to deal with certain bugs that are there.
Yes.
If you stop that process, potentially the body hasn't completely healed afterwards. So I'm with you. I kind of think as much as possible, we should let the body do its thing.
Especially in the children. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially you don't want to start putting medication in children, because they also have to, your body has to detox that.
Yeah.
It will have to go through your liver, and potentially there's a price to pay for that, especially if it's long term.
It needs to consume a lot of energy to do that also.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Sarah, thank you very much for this interview.
No, it's a pleasure. It's lovely to speak to you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Sure. You
Thank
have some brilliant ideas. I look forward to reading everything that you send me.
you. Okay.